Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life. Now LeBron's a 4-time champion, and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable. So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. Today we will be discussing which playoff series that since 2010 that have impacted a player's legacy and negatively impacted or hurt their legacy, as that is in the title. And a man that has 5 players, and I'm pretty sure we'll agree. There's bound to be some agreement. Don't you agree, Austin?
Yeah, definitely.
So, do you want to go first, or would you like to hear mine?
Well, let's just do one of yours first.
Okay.
I'm sure we're going to have some crossover here, so start out with the one that you think we're going to agree on the most. Let's end off with ones we're going to not have on our same list.
Okay. So I think we have this player. I'm not sure if we have this exact series, but I have Chris Paul and the Suns losing to the Bucks in the finals in 2021. They were up 2-0. This is in our channel's history. We thought the Suns were going to win. This would have given Chris Paul his ring, as he still is not. He hasn't been back to the finals, and they were up 2-0, and they lost 4 straight in the Bucks to lose the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I don't know if that definitely hurt Chris Paul's legacy, but Chris Paul didn't necessarily have a bad series. I do have Chris Paul, so I'll do mine right now. It was the 2015 second round Clippers versus Rockets. And in this series, Kevin, if you remember, they were up 3-1 in the series, and they blew it. Chris Paul had a terrible end to the series, and they allowed James Harden to move on to the Western Conference Final where they faced the Warriors. So I think the 2015 second round was definitely more hurtful because they blew a 3-1 lead against a team that had just newly acquired James Harden, really. He'd only been there for a couple years, and they haven't had much success. And then they end up making it to the Western Conference Finals in 2015 just because Chris Paul and the Clippers choked completely. Chris Paul was extremely poor in those last couple games. And while definitely he was not great in those losing games against the Bucks in 2021, he still didn't have a poor series by any means. He averaged 22, 3, and 8 during that series, Kevin, with a 55, 52, 75 splits. He was shooting 55% from the field and 52% from 3. So that's why I don't really count that series for him being a total negative. While in 2015, they had just beaten the Spurs in 7, and then we're up 3-1 against the Rockets, and then it all fell apart. Chris Paul still shot pretty well during that series, but he, in the last couple games, was just horrible, especially in Game 5, which started their comeback. It started the Rockets' comeback. They were up a lot in that game, and then it just turned into a crapshoot from across the board as the Rockets, Chris Paul, who's usually good on defense, just fell apart.
Yeah, I almost thought about that one. I was also thinking about like narratives where this could have given Chris Paul his ring. It was in the finals.
The 2015 Clippers, Kevin, he's the best player. And we can't say that about the 2021 Suns. So yes, I do agree that narrative, it does matter, but I think it's more impactful when you're the best player on your team and choke than when you're not.
Okay. All right, I can see that. But now I'll let you do a guy. I'll let you do the second series.
You know what, Kevin? We'll go back-to-back on Clippers players. Mine is the 2020 second round. Clippers versus Nuggets, Paul George. Pandemic P, as he's known whenever he's starting to play bad. And man, in that Game 7, Kevin, when they blew a 3-1 lead, the Clippers won 3-1 leads in my number 5 and 4, which is pretty funny. But man, this series has done numbers for his career. People remembered him as a great playoff player when he played for the Pacers. Those matchups against LeBron were remembered very fondly, and then this happened. And Jokic and the Nuggets end up going to the Western Conference Final for the first time to face the Lakers. But Kevin, I know you remember this series because it was bad. The memes, the jokes around Pandemic P. I don't think he's escaped them yet.
Yeah, so I do not have that series on my list. I wanted to put that series on my list, but I didn't know exactly what player to put.
Paul George was hitting corner threes off the side of the backboard, Kevin. They started calling him Pandemic P. He was the butt of the joke. He was, well, he definitely was not the sole reason, and I would agree with that he's not the sole reason why they lost that series, and there was other reoccurring issues. That was his first season with the Clippers. They blew a 3-1 lead, and Paul George during said series was shooting 43.5% from the field, which is not great. And you go like that, those last couple games, like Game 7, Kevin, Paul George was atrocious. 4 for 16 in the Game 7, 2 for 11 from 3, had 10 points, -20 plus minus when he was on the court, 5 turnovers. He was atrocious. Atrocious. Do you know who led that team in points in Game 7?
I'm going to go Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson was not on that team. He only played 4 minutes, so he did not lead that team in points. It was Montrezl Harrell off the bench at 20 points. Kawhi had 14. Patrick Beverley and JaMychal Green both had 11. And then Paul George was 5th on his team in scoring while shooting the second most shots behind Kawhi. And his stat line was 10-4-2. Say again? Yeah. Kawhi was healthy in all of 2020. He was
okay.
His injuries didn't start until the year after that. But Paul George was, let's just say, the worst version of himself during that series, and it directly correlated with the downfall of the Clippers that series. I remember everyone was saying LA versus LA in the Western Conference Final, and I truly believed it.
Yeah.
I believed we were going to see it.
Yeah, that was the year I was really bought into the Clippers, and that was the year they could have won the championship, and they just couldn't get there.
Pandemic P.
Yep. Okay, that's a good one. I'll go to another one. I have Kevin Durant and the Nets versus the Bucks in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and that, of course, is the toe game, where his
Who does this hurt the legacy for?
Kevin Durant.
KD played so well during that series, though.
I know, but this could have, and it literally was a game of inches, Austin. He could have led a team to the conference finals. He could have battled against the narrative of he needs help. He wasn't the number one guy on.
Let me push back on this a little bit before you give your full opinion on it. One, James Harden only played 4 games during this series of the 7. Kyrie also only played 4 games during this series. So his second most minutes guy on the team was Joe Harris. After that, it was Blake Griffin, who by this point in his career was only averaging 12 points. And I'll just give you the rundown of the stats for that series from KD. 35, 11, 5, 1.6 steals, 1.1 blocks. I remember this is the best version of KD I've ever seen. So I don't know how this. I get your point, but it's also not a fully healthy Kyrie, not a fully healthy James Harden. Both of them, they combined for 8 games combined, and of a 7-game series. And KD averaged 35, 11, and 5. I just don't know what else you can do with it with your players that injured. I know that it hurts that his foot was on the line, but that doesn't hurt him. That hurts the Nets. That's the Nets being like, we could have won it that year. KD was playing so well. I do have a KD series on here, a series that I do feel like he was part of the reason why they lost it. But I would argue he was the only reason why they were in it, let alone going to a Game 7.
Well, yes, but my thing is, it hurt his legacy because you talked about that. It goes to the point. It goes to the point that he needs help. If he literally has his foot just a few inches not on the line, he wins the game. He goes to the Eastern Conference Finals with both his injured starters, and he could have competed for a championship.
The logic's still flawed, Kevin. In that case, Luka needs help because Kyrie's on his team. Kyrie's playing all the games. Kyrie played 4 games. He played half the series. And on top of that, James Harden played half the series. They were already down. When they traded for James Harden and Kyrie, they were already low on the amount of bench players they had. Again, Joe Harris was second in minutes during this series. Next after that was a way over the hill Blake Griffin. That his team was not just bad without those players. It was horrible. Jeff Green, a player that ended up winning a championship with the Nuggets, only played 4 games during that series, and he was one of their best bench players. So it was literally speaking, watching the series, was Kevin Durant and almost no one against Giannis. To put James Harden did play in Game 7. He finally got healthy enough to play, and he did play poor in that series. But Kevin, the bench, Jeff Green, Landry Shamet, Nick Claxton were the only 3 players to play. Kevin, they scored 0 points. Their bench in a Game 7 that went to overtime.
Well, because he missed. Well, he didn't make the shot, but his foot was on the line. Austin.
Kevin, you're looking at the wrong things. His bench scored no points. I don't think Luka's ever won a game that his bench scores 0 points. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible for any player of all time ever. And KD in this game, Kevin, scored 48 points. 48. I just don't know how this hurts his legacy. I think this is one of the moments of KD that actually I really enjoy. It's one of the few moments in his career that I'm like, wow, KD actually put on a show. Because when he's with the Warriors, yes, he's scoring a lot of points, all this stuff, but he joined a super team. So it's like, while he is sure being a great player, I think it hurts his legacy because he went to the Warriors, and that's how he won his titles. Or if you look at his end of OKC career, which we'll get to eventually, it's like, oh, you had a chance of beating the Warriors and ended up choking. You ended up playing poorly. This is one of the moments where he's not on a super team because his teammates are injured. And he is playing some of the best basketball of his entire career. It's right after he had an Achilles tear. Kevin, this is his first year back after Achilles tear. No one has ever put up 35, 11, and 5 with 1.6 steals and 1.1 blocks after an Achilles tear. I thought this was one of the most remarkable series ever for a player, let alone if he was fully healthy before this season and was in his prime. This is not what I would consider prime KD, even though there's never been an end to his prime. It's just after an Achilles tear, Kevin, I thought this is one of the series that really, I think, bolstered his legacy, helped him. Because, again, he was coming off an Achilles tear. He played one of the best series ever. His 2 best players only played 4 games that series each, so 8 games combined. And he was playing the eventual champions. So I understand your point. It does from a visual point that everyone's like, oh my God, his foot was on the line. If it wasn't on the line, they could have went on. I don't know if they end up even winning the championship with a injury-riddled Harden and Kyrie. I don't know if that happens. They're not playing every game because they're hurt. So I do agree that this hurts the Nets legacy. If we're doing a Nets legacy video, this is definitely the part that, as a Nets fan, is probably the most hurt that you would ever feel. Because you're almost to the Eastern Conference Final. You beat the best team that was in the East that season, a team that I really thought were going to win it in the Bucks. And they ended up, if he hit a 3, they would have beat him. But if we're talking KD, I disagree with this being a legacy hurting moment. Because I've never seen a player come off injury and play this well in their entire career. I think it's probably one of the most empowering injury comebacks of all time.
He did play great, and I'm saying this, I'm viewing this series from the narrative, he needs a super team to win. And this could have proved that wrong. He did play amazingly well. However, they didn't win that series. And you can point to the point of, man, if he hits that shot, they go to the Eastern Conference Finals. You'll never know.
But that's not on KD.
It's his body on the line, Austin.
I don't think you understand, Kevin. Basketball's not one shot.
You don't understand
this is a problem. No, I understand what you're saying. His foot was on the line, and if it wasn't, they would have gone to Eastern Conference Finals. I get that. My point is that one shot does not make a series. The fact that shot, listen,
it literally makes the series. Austin.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. How many points were on the board before that? How many shots were taken before that shot? All those shots add up, Kevin, to where you are in that moment. The fact that moment could be had, let alone, is a bolstering of KD's legacy. The fact that they could go to overtime, bolstering of KD's legacy. One of the most amazing things I've seen from KD's entire career, maybe the most amazing thing. Again, 48 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists in a Game 7 against the eventual champions, against the best player in the league at the moment, which was Giannis, who won MVP. Or had won the MVP the year before. It's just, I in the narrative of he needs help was always a Thunder narrative or a Warriors narrative. Whenever you went to the Nets and had this moment, I never was like, oh, he really needs help. That's the only way he can win. My thought was Blake Griffin was the second best player of the series because he played the entire game or the entire series. Well, again, let's put it this way. LeBron needs help because Kyrie, when he was hurt in 2015, couldn't win the title. But LeBron also had one of the best finals ever, averaging 35 points per game. We never had to say that about LeBron. This is not a series I feel like hurts KD's legacy at all. I don't think it bolsters the narrative that he needs help. Well, I do think it may be true. I don't think that this series almost proves that he doesn't. Again, just give him a couple healthy players, a bench that doesn't score 0 points, just a basketball player on his bench that can actually put ball in hoop for more than 0 points. I think would again, people never said that LeBron needs help in 2007. That wasn't the LeBron needs help year. That was, how are they here? How are they in this moment? How did they get to the finals? I don't think that's the moment where it's a LeBron needs help. I do think there is a moment when that happens. I could agree with that. But the 2007 finals was not the moment that LeBron needed help. And I would say the 2021 second round Bucks versus Nets is not the moment where I thought KD needed help.
Well, that's why it's not on your list. It's on my list because because I view it as, in those moments, that's when the players deliver. And he did deliver by getting it to overtime. We can argue about that. But to me, this is where I point where he can't do it by himself. He can't be that number one guy. He needs help on that. That's how I view the series. We're going to go around in circles. So we're agreeing to disagree on this one.
Yeah. My last point will be, again, a shot does not define a series. And if the thought is that it does, I don't think that, I think
disagree.
I think it's extremely disingenuous because points add up. The fact that we're in this moment is by itself amazing. I understand what you're saying. It's definitely a meme that goes around, but I don't think it actually is against KD. I think it's more against the Nets and Harden and all the other players that necessarily did not have the best series or were injured during said series. But we'll go my number 3. These aren't necessarily in order. I just told Kevin to put 5 down. And I put 5 down as well. So they're not necessarily in order. But the next one I will discuss is the 2016 Western Conference Final, Warriors versus Thunder. This is KD. Kevin, this is where I see KD actually being a choker or whatever you want to say. Instead of the amazing stats he had before, he does average 30 here. And you're like, oh, he averages 30 on 42% from the field and 29% from 3. He was shooting horribly. I could also put this for Westbrook, who shot 40% from the field and 32% from 3. Both of those are very similar stats, though, so I didn't want to count it. And Russ also averaged 4 steals per game during this series, so I didn't want to put Russ here because he was at least very impactful defensively. And while KD was definitely good defensively, this is the series. This is it. This is the one that defines KD's legacy as a choker, in my opinion. Again, if you're going to shoot so poorly, it doesn't matter if you're averaging 30 points because in the other series, again, he's shooting 50% from the field and 40% from 3 and 90% from the free throw line. So he's doing those on the great splits and also playing great defense. In this instance, he's playing horrible defense. Except he's getting counting stats, but he's allowing guys on other team to just have some of the best shooting splits of their careers. Again, the guy he would be guarding, Kevin, is probably Harrison Barnes, right? He'd probably be guarding Harrison Barnes. While Harrison Barnes didn't average many points, he shot 48% from the field and 53% from 3 during this series. And in a Game 7 that obviously the Thunder needed to win, they mustered a horrible 88 points. 88 points. Curry had 36. You go to Game 6, the Clay in Game 6 game. Clay had 41. Curry had 31, 10, and 9. KD again shot 32%. Oh, he scored 29 points. Kevin, he shot 10 of 31. 10 of 31. 32% from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. 13%. This is KD's a choker. Oh, he can't do this. And then obviously the narrative continues when he goes to the Warriors. But who's your next series?
So my next series is I'm I'll probably just get this one out of the way because I'm not sure if you'll agree with it. I do think this is a pivotal series, and that's why it's on my list. This affected James Harden's legacy with the Rockets versus Warriors in the 2018 Western Conference Finals. And I believe when they lost in Game 7. They lost in 7. And Harden did put up numbers in this. You have 32 in Game 7. And then you also have 32 in Game 6, 19 in a Game 5 win. That's his lowest points. He scored 41 in Game 1, 27. Lowest points was 19. However, you look at his plus minus, negative 13, negative 19 in Game 6 and 7, and negative 19 in Game 3, a loss. And to me, this is when this to me is the moment where there's the narrative with James Harden. Oh, he can't play. His play style doesn't get him to the finals when he's the number one guy. I know he's been to the finals, but that was with a stacked team. So to me, this is the series where I'm like, this hurt James Harden's legacy.
Yeah, we completely disagree again. Again, those series were like, oh, minus whatever. Chris Paul was hurt. His second best player on his team was either Clint Capella or Eric Gordon. Those are your two options. You know who the second best player was on the Warriors? Either Curry or Thompson. Two all-stars, two great generational players. The next player, the fourth best player, is a Defensive Player of the Year winner in Draymond Green. Yeah, I thought this was another one of those series I think actually helped Harden's legacy. While he did have some bad games, he didn't shoot the greatest on the field. He was really forcing it in those last couple games. And again, in a Game 7 where the rest of his team, the rest of Harden's team could not hit a three. He also shot 2 for 13, sure, but he still had 32 points on 42% from from the field, 41.4 to be exact. So I see this more. The reason why they lost Game 7 isn't Harden shooting 12 for 29. It's Trevor Ariza shooting 0 for 12. We had the Klay Thompson 0 for 10. What about the Trevor Ariza 0 for 12 in a Game 7? Kevin, they lost by 9 points, and their second best player was out, a player who was still a top 5 point guard in the league in Chris Paul at this point in his career. And Trevor Ariza shot 0 for 12, and they lost by 9. They lost by 9. I feel like this is another series I think actually helps Harden's legacy. Harden has some terrible series that I do think are definitely diminishing of his legacy. But losing to the greatest team in NBA history by 9 points in Game 7, with your second best player hurt and Trevor Ariza shooting 0 for 12, I don't think hurts your legacy. I think it's more of, the player you desperately need healthy is hurt. The player that you were up 3-2 with when healthy is hurt, and your shooter cannot shoot at the moment. So, yeah. It's the 29 straight missed threes, and that's mainly between Eric Gordon and Trevor Ariza, who combined for 2 for 21, Kevin. His two best shooters besides himself. 2 for 21. They lost by 9. They lost by 9 points. It's there are series again. I don't point to this one. They were up at halftime by a pretty sizable margin. They couldn't hit any shots. Mainly because, again, the guys who were paid to do it, Ariza and Gordon, could not hit any. But I understand this one, but I think the narrative is greatest team of all time on one side. Team that would probably be any team of all time is taken to Game 7 and lost by single digits by an injured team led by James Harden. That's what I see this series as.
Okay. I see the series as he could have gotten to the finals. He could have taken down the greatest team of all time. There is the Chris Paul injury, but I view this series could have elevated his legacy, and it instead didn't elevate, and to me that hurts it. So now I think we've got 2 more.
Yeah, I'll let you do your next one.
Okay, so my next one is Kyrie Irving with the Celtics versus Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. And you will ask, Kyrie Irving didn't play in that because he was injured. That is the reason he's on this list. This is kind of, I have a lot of these guys. Could they do it himself? Can he be the number one guy? Kyrie Irving forced his way out to the Celtics and forced his way out of Cleveland and wanted to lead that team. And the team actually did better when he didn't play. This was a team with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and
Oh, so you're
Al
saying
Horford.
2018?
Yeah, 2018. Yes. Yeah, it's the 2018 Eastern Conference Finals. What year did I say? I don't think I said a year, right?
Yeah, I was just the year before Kyrie was on the team in 2017, and they played the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I didn't know.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know which year it was. So I was just
No,
trying to
yeah,
clarify.
okay. Yeah, it's 2017, 2018.
So
It's
2018 is
Celtics.
a series.
Yeah. Yeah, 2018 series. Cavs 1-7 against the Celtics. And of course, that's kind of goes to the hate of the Celtics not liking Kyrie. This was where I was like, it doesn't work with Kyrie with the Celtics. They do better without him. And this to me impacted his legacy. Of course, he has a ring with Cleveland, but it hurts his legacy because he can't. It showed that there was a chemistry issue there, and he didn't get the Celtics to the finals. And when they got farther, I believe this is the farthest they went in history.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Why did you choose the series that the Celtics lost as the series that proved that Kyrie was not needed?
Because I am pretty sure in 2018-19, they did not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost in a gentleman's sweep to the Bucks, and then he went to the Nets. So I chose this. This is the farthest they went, and it wasn't with him healthy.
I kind of get what you're saying. I don't. Again, if they had Kyrie, I think they beat the Cavs, though. That's why I'm a little bit confused. I think if Kyrie's healthy, they beat the Cavs. That's why I'm a little bit.
Okay. Well, he was inactive against Milwaukee. He wasn't active.
He was hurt for that entire playoff run.
Yeah.
I'm saying if he was healthy for the Cavs series, they probably win it.
Well, he was healthy the next year, and they didn't make it. They only won one game in the second round.
To the number, I get what you're saying, but they lost to a 60-win team. They lost to a 60-win Giannis team that 5 of their players averaged over 10 points per game. In Tatum during that Bucks series, 36% from the field, 12% from 3. Gordon Hayward during that series, 34% from the field, 33% from 3. I don't know if it's only on Kyrie. I get your point, but Tatum played much better the year before. It didn't really give Kyrie the same amount of help that he gave his teammates during that run to the conference final. Like in the conference final against the Cavs, Tatum shot 50% from the field and 35% from 3. That just wasn't what he was doing the next year. I do get your point. I definitely think that this is a good one to have. I think that I wouldn't have chose necessarily the Cavs series, but it is what it is. It definitely did hurt Kyrie's legacy. I think it unjust. I don't think there was players on the Celtics that didn't necessarily help Kyrie in the future years by them playing just horrible. Now Kyrie had some bad series too, but this is a good one to have because I do think it was a big narrative that that the Celtics were better without Kyrie. But again, my thought is always, if they had Kyrie, I think they beat the Cavs because they needed another scorer, and if they had that, I think they maybe beat the Cavs in 6 or 5. But I do think this is a good one to have. I do think that if we're talking about legacy hurters, this one definitely hurts, even if I don't think it's necessarily truly what the eye should see. I do agree that this is one to have.
Gotcha. All right. Now you have, what is your second to last one?
Just happened not this past year, but the year before that. Joel Embiid against the Celtics lost in 7. They were up in this series, Kevin, 3-2. And Joel Embiid during the series shot 42% from the field, 20% from 3, averaged 25.5, sure, with 3 blocks. But in those last couple of games, Kevin, in the last 2 games, 76ers scored 86 and 88. They scored no points. And that's mainly on the fact that Joel Embiid, let's just say, was not his best. He was not, unfortunately. Especially in Game 7, Kevin. We're in Game 7. Joel Embiid shot 5 for 18 and scored 15 points.
Yeah.
That's all I really have to say. Just an atrocious end of the series for Embiid. And I think this is really the moment where I was like, Embiid can't do it. I'm going to need to see him do it. But again, in the Game 7, a must win. He shoots 5 for 18, 0 for 4 from 3. Scores 15 points. This is the guy who likes to put up all these points in the regular season, scores so many points, lead the league in scoring. 15 points, Kevin, on 5 for 18 shooting.
Yeah, I do agree. Embiid should be on here. He was not on my list, and I do. This is a good one to have, as he's just a guy that hasn't really performed well in the playoffs. So that is a good one to have on this list. Now, who is your final?
It's probably the one you have. I think I have to mention it. It's LeBron in 2011. We're doing since 2010. We will do one before this as Kevin becomes more involved with past years of NBA history. And we may do another one, a part 2 of since 2010. But this is the one. Again, Jason Terry averages more points in this series than LeBron. It's just it's a series that really harms LeBron's legacy. I think it's really the only thing that's really stopping him. If he had this ring, I think he would be my GOAT. It's just really hard for me to do it when, again, Jason Terry's averaging more points and he falters when the lights are the brightest. And again, there's the 2007 that I think really helps LeBron's legacy. And you don't see it as LeBron needs help. You see it as get him some help because there's no good players on his team. You can't play with no one. Basketball is a team sport. And while the best player on the team definitely impacts it the most, you do need some other capable players to win titles. But in 2011, you're like, wow, LeBron really does need help. He really does need a lot of help for him to win a title. And again, the Heat were maybe the most hated team of all time. And them losing to a Dirk-led, the oldest team, or one of the oldest teams to ever win a title by average age, really does harm LeBron's legacy.
Yeah, this is the one I am with too. I when we're thinking about since 2010, LeBron has to be on here because his finals losses are what hurt his case to be the GOAT, just given how many finals he lost. And this one works. Yeah, you can argue about some like, oh, the Warriors had Kevin Durant with already a stacked team. But they were, on paper, they had the more.
Yeah, that's the difference. And there's also no injuries. So, like, where the Harden one, it's playing against the greatest team of all time and his best players hurt. That's not what's happening here. Dirk had the flu for some games, and they still won. And Caron Butler was hurt for the Mavs, and people don't remember. He didn't play most of the series, or most of the play. He didn't play the entire playoffs because he was hurt. But if he had played during these series, it would have been another star player, or not star player, but starter they could have had to, again, win by even more. It didn't even go 7. It's a series I think really hurts.
Yeah, and so we're in agreement on the final one. And yeah, this one, LeBron in a pivotal Game 5 only put up 8 points. So, and yeah, I think that pretty much ends it. Any final thoughts, Austin?
No, I think it's good that we disagreed on this. I think a little bit. We usually agree, I think, on a good bit of stuff, but this one we definitely disagree with more than I think we disagree with a lot.
Yeah, and no, it's disagreements can be fun, and it's good for y'all. Let us know if you agree with one of us. Do you disagree with both of us? We appreciate all the comments, and thank you for listening. And hopefully we get to do another one of these in the future.